I've gotten some questions from multiple people regarding stretch time. So a few things to think about with stretch time. Do you hold it for 5-10 seconds? Do you hold it for 30 seconds, 60 seconds? What is beneficial? So the research is kind of conflicting, but this is what works for me. First thing, don't stretch cold muscles. That's a really simple thing to think about. You know, if your muscles are cold, then you're probably gonna have some tightness and tension. You're more likely to strain the muscles. So warm up the muscles, 5-10 minutes of any kind of movement activities if you want to do. For Jiu-Jitsu specific, if you want to do some gentle flowing movements, or if you want to do just some movement drills, whatever you want to do is fine. That's great to do. Now, what do I think is the best for pre-exercise stretch times? So pre-exercise stretch times, really you gotta think about what's your task. So if we're doing an exercise that's really relaxing, if we're doing something that's really low-key, low explosiveness, then prolonged holds, I'd say 30 seconds and up, 30, 60, 90 seconds, 2 to 3 reps is great, because what that's going to do is keep you relaxed, get that joint mobility, that flexibility of your muscles. It's going to elongate those muscles a little bit. So think about that way. If you want to get into something like Jiu-Jitsu, if you want to get into something like where you have to be explosive, change directions on a dime, really be mobile and explosive, have good strength and power, and I would say doing stretches that you hold for about 5 to 10 seconds is key. And this is why. So you have stretch receptors in your muscles, muscle tendons, kind of those attachments. You have stretch receptors. And those stretch receptors respond to the stretch of the muscle. When they feel a certain amount of stretch, they activate to get the muscle to contract. What that essentially does is a protective mechanism for your joint. So if your joint is getting ready to hyperextend, you have those stretch receptors, those muscles will protect it. Now, in theory, if you stretch for a prolonged period of time, they say a number of things can happen. You can, number one, turn that stretch receptor off, meaning it won't turn on in time, or it'll be too lax, and that way it'll force your ligament to do a lot of the stability, where your ligament does do some of that stability, for example, like your knee, like your ACL, but also your muscles do a lot of that stability. For example, there's been players in the NFL Combine that have had blown ACLs, and they can still move on a dime and change directions and explode and run really fast and start and stop. The reason they could do this is because their muscles are so developed and their stretch receptors are so active and functioning so well that their muscles are actually keeping their joint, their knee in position, not letting that knee kind of shift or dislocate, where the ACL would come in as like a kind of one of those things that stabilizes the knee. So you have to think about what you want. You want your muscles to activate in time to protect your joint, to not put too much stress to that joint, and not allow your joints to hyperextend. So essentially, when you are doing dynamic stretching, you're going into the stretch, holding about 5 to 10 seconds, and coming out of the stretch 5 times. What that does essentially primes the muscle. It gets the muscle warmed up, helps some of the movement. It takes to the end range and gets those stretch receptors firing and gets them kind of activated and ready to go. On the other hand, if you hold for a long period of time, if you do a 30 plus second stretch, what you can do is actually get that stretch receptor to kind of shut off or be lax. And what that does is it kind of doesn't allow that stretch receptor to fire in time. There's also been some research as far as you lose some strength and power if you do prolonged stretch times. I don't know how accurate that is. Bottom line is do what works for you. I like to do a nice warm up, so I like to do some movement drills for 5 to 10 minutes. Then I like to do dynamic stretches, so whether I'm stretching my hamstring or my hip flexors, I like to hold the stretch 5 to 10 seconds and then release, slowly work into the stretch, get my end range hold, and then come back out. Do that 5 times for each direction, and then after you've done exercising or done grappling or done doing jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, the static stretches are great. Those are good for relaxation, getting the tissue to kind of release and relax, and do some deep breathing with those things. And I feel like those prolonged stretches help with recovery of the tissue, keeps your tissue from getting too tight, and also helps you relax and kind of get everything calmed down. So hope this helps, guys. Really listen to your body. If the shorter stretch times work for you, do that. If the longer stretch times work for you, you can do that after. And thanks again, jiu-jitsutherapist.com. Appreciate your time, guys.